Over the past year, why has over 1,000 new developers been more aware, or should I say showcased interest when it comes to Cardano? Well, simply put, the answer is because the Cardano Foundation ran a global marketing campaign for a year, and it's resulted in over 1,000 new developers that have showcased interest when it comes to this, which I think is a major victory. Now, this marketing campaign also achieved many other amazing things, and I'll showcase it all in today's video, and later on I'll talk about the price of ADA, which is Cardano's native token. But I first want to clarify, nothing I say is financial advice, and I am not telling anyone to do anything. So for about a year, the Cardano Foundation ran a global marketing campaign. They called it the Unified Global Events Marketing Strategy, and it was designed to basically bring Cardano closer to the world. That's what they say, right? Closer to the whole world, and just kind of spread more awareness when it comes to the Cardano brand. Now, when it comes to this, what did they do? So basically, they attended events and stuff like that in places such as Brazil. They went to Kenya, they went to Singapore, they went to Miami, they went to Paris, France, and many others. And basically, again, when they're at these events, they showcase Cardano, and through that, they're engaging automatically, of course, with more developers, with more people, and it just brings overall more awareness when it comes to Cardano. Now, allegedly, they showcased 76 different Cardano projects, so that was really impressive. Not to mention, as a result of this global marketing campaign, they reached over 7,500 people, which is really impressive. Also, on top of that, in terms of media coverage, as a result of this, 95 news/articles have mentioned Cardano. So long story short, I think that campaign was considered a success. Now, people like to say, well, that's kind of a waste of resources. Who funded this? Well, allegedly, it's funded by the Cardano treasury, and people like to say this is such a big waste. But I kind of disagree with that, actually, because yeah, sure, going to 20 different events, going to places around the world, it's not free, right? It's sometimes kind of expensive, paying for the hotel fees, the plane ticket, food, and all this. Again, those bills add up. But at the same time, if we consider the impact, like for instance, having 1,000 or over 1,000 new developers being engaged when it comes to Cardano, showing interest, I think that right there is not bad. Considering if, let's say, just even 10% or even 5% of those developers start building something on Cardano, and let's say if whatever they build gains somewhat a little bit of traction, that's already still a major victory. So when people like to say, wow, that marketing campaign was a complete waste, I disagree with that, because actually they say that they beat all their targets in a sense where they thought they were going to just engage with this many developers, but then it turns out it was way more. So they kind of exceeded what they set out to achieve, which I don't think is a bad thing, because let's think about this. With the amount that was spent, they probably expected a certain amount of results, right? They probably calculated it in the beginning, but then turns out the metrics have exceeded their expectations. So it means that their budget was justified, right? In a sense where they expected one thing, but then ended up getting something better. So it wasn't a waste, in my opinion. Now, this type of stuff right here isn't going to necessarily just showcase the results of it straight away. Like in a sense where sometimes developers, they could take months, they could take years to really start doing something. So again, this stuff right here is more so meant for the long term. But I don't think it's a bad thing at the end of the day, because they're thinking about stuff like this. I get it, it may seem very trivial, but if over the past year, over 1,000 new developers have showcased interest when it comes to Cardano, I don't find it to be a bad thing. That's a lot. It's not like it's only 100 or 200. No, this is over 1,000. So yes, sure, arguably people can say, oh, it's very expensive to travel and stuff like that. I get it. In some cases, that could arguably be true. But then also on the flip side, they've exceeded their expectations. So I don't think it's a bad thing that they even ran this somewhat year-long global marketing campaign. I think all of this right here is pretty impressive. And let's think about this. The Cardano Foundation recently had a partnership with the Brazilian Olympic Committee. So this is pretty impressive stuff right here. Could them appearing basically in an event in Brazil as part of this global marketing campaign, could that have played a role maybe in terms of the Cardano Foundation having a partnership with the Brazilian Olympic Committee? Well, maybe, right? We don't know. So that could have been a possibility. So even if throughout this whole marketing campaign, if let's say the only thing that it resulted was the partnership with the Brazilian Olympic Committee, if that, let's say in a pure hypothetical, was the only victory they got from that campaign, that's already still a very big victory in my opinion. But apparently it doesn't end there, right? Because over 1,000 developers showed interest when it comes to Cardano. So imagine if, let's say, they already have a partnership with the Brazilian Olympic Committee, imagine the ripple effects of what their year-long marketing campaign could have done for them, maybe moving forward. I think it could just have been a lot more dynamic than what a lot of people expected to begin with. Because a lot of people thought, oh, nothing's going to really happen as a result of this. But sometimes that's not necessarily the case behind the scenes, but we'll have to wait and see. Because a lot of these developers, if they start caring more and more about Cardano, and if they're building right now, it's going to showcase the results later on in terms of what they build and the adoption that it could receive, right? But even besides that, people like to tell me, well, if this is all going on when it comes to Cardano, why is ADA at around now below 17 cents? Like, that's really bad. I'm aware of that, but at the same time, we have to consider these marketing campaigns, the partnerships that Cardano is having, all that type of stuff right here won't really matter right now, but it could matter later on if the market were to truly take off. Because usually when the market is doing really bad, people just don't really care about what the project is doing. But then actually, if let's say the market does take off, people usually start caring. It's kind of no different to, let's say, in the case of in real life, right? I'm pretty sure that when Jeff Bezos was first starting Amazon, it wasn't like everyone cared about it. Now, a lot of people now care about Jeff Bezos and stuff like that because Amazon really took off. But imagine in the early days, maybe not so many people cared about it. So when it comes to this market, I find it to be a little bit no different. Things usually don't matter until they do. But typically, the projects that are ready to hypothetically see that sort of attention, they are the ones that keep building, having new partnerships, keep innovating. That's the thing. So when it comes to Cardano, I like what they're doing behind the scenes. It may not be the most flashy or cool or the most interesting thing, I would say, but at least they're trying, and so far we've seen some results, like for instance, the recent partnership with the Brazilian Olympic Committee. Again, Cardano, people like to say, oh, it's an outdated layer 1 blockchain, no one cares about it. But if it's so outdated, why is ADA currently ranked 16th in the world in terms of market cap? Clearly, there's a decent amount of individuals that still care about Cardano. Cardano being around for quite a while doesn't mean it's outdated, because they kept building and improving. So it's not like it just stayed the way it was and didn't really change ever since 2018 or 2019 and just kind of stayed stagnant like that. That's not the case. They kept improving, they kept building. So it wasn't like it became outdated. It's still very much in the mix. I mean, if people talk about Solana, if people talk about Avalanche, they talk about Algorand, what is oftentimes also in the conversation? It's Cardano. So Cardano as a layer 1 blockchain hasn't really fallen off, if that's kind of the way I want to put it, because it's still pretty popular and clearly a lot of developers still care about this. And if anything, last year, ADA, at times it was hovering at around $1, which was considered kind of bad because the all-time high when it comes to ADA is at around $3. So last year, seeing it hover at around $1, it was considered kind of bad. But we sometimes also don't consider that we're over 5 times lower than $1 as of right now. So for ADA to hypothetically go back to $1, it doesn't really need a full-on altcoin season, because 2025, I didn't see an altcoin season that year. Not to mention, ADA doesn't need to break any records. It doesn't have to set any new milestones. No. $1 was considered very boring when it comes to ADA. But as of right now, because we're so low, we're over 5 times lower than $1. Keep in mind, these levels right now, like seeing ADA at below 17 cents, we saw these levels also back in 2018. So let's just let that sink in. ADA basically is back at a level in which it once saw in 2018. Kind of ridiculous, right? But not really in such a bad way, because I don't mind the dip. If ADA just goes back to $1, I'm already going to Sizzler, the restaurant. Simply put, because its journey to go to $1, again, it's over 5 times lower than that. That's the thing. Bitcoin is not over 5 times lower than its all-time high, and that's its all-time high, right? $1 isn't even the all-time high when it comes to ADA. So I just find this as a moment in which case where I really don't mind dollar cost averaging. at least once a month. That's all I do, but I'm not telling anyone to do anything. However, I want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day.